Hello, darlings, and welcome to Living Out Loud with Loretta. Now, okay, hopefully you know by now that my podcast, Living Out Loud with Loretta, is all about the pursuit of balance for parents, basically maintaining the fabulous adult that you always were with being a fabulous parent. This episode is all about my indulgence. One of the things that I love to do is absolutely engross myself in pop culture. I have been a fan of things like Bravo and the E Network for years. So when I first heard my guest today, when I first heard him talking about his podcast and what he's all about, I was fascinated. I heard him on my friend Suzanne Dressler's podcast. Her podcast is called There's a Word for That. It's fascinating. If you are a wordsmith or even trying to learn about words and their impact and just kind of the effect and what they mean to different people, please check out that podcast. There's a Word for That by Suzanne Dressler. But I digress. So David Yontef. I was fascinated because I was like, here's this guy. He is like ensconced in the whole Bravolebrity world, and I'm like all about everything Bravo. I watch all the shows, pretty much, apart from the cooking shows because I'm not so good with the cooking, and I kind of leave that for my husband. But I'll watch everything else. So, Below Deck, the yachting one, the regular one. Most of the Housewives. I have my favorites. New York, number one, because I live in New York. Beverly Hills, because I used to live in Beverly Hills. I aspire to that beautiful, glamorous, over-the-top life. However, I want to keep it real, which is what the New York Housewives do, I love the OC Housewives because they are the OG. That was the original. Vicky Gunvalson, apparently she was the one that led the way. However, on an episode of David's podcast, which is called Behind the Velvet Rope, Jeana Keough, she talked about the fact that the show was really like about her. Anyway. This is my indulgence. I am not talking to a parent today. I'm not finding out how they balance things or don't balance things. I am finding out what is happening in the Bravo world. I'm finding out how David Yontef gets all these fantastic interviews. I am finding out how he becomes friends with all of these Bravolebrities. And of course, they are human, just as you and I are, although I might be veering a little bit more on the side of alien. Anyway, it was fascinating to talk to David. I hope that I have started a regular monthly chat with him because I need my fix. I watch the shows. I would love to see what's happening behind the cameras, and when the cameras are not rolling and he gets all of that intel. He talks a little bit about it tonight. I hope you enjoy. He's fabulous. You've all got to listen to Behind the Velvet Rope. Welcome, David Yontef. This episode of Living Out Loud with Loretta is brought to you by Black Girl Magic, a collection of wines from the McBride sisters. Use code Loretta at checkout when you shop at mcbridesisters.com. Good evening, everybody. I would love for you to meet. Now, this is not my typical episode where I'm talking to parents and how they balance things, etc., etc. This is about how I balance my life. One of the things I love so much is indulging myself in pop culture, and my guest tonight is all about pop culture and Bravo in particular. The fabulous Mr. David Yontef. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You are pronouncing it correctly. This is your break. Sometimes you just got to talk about pop culture and have some fun. You need a break from the kids, right?
Exactly, my darling, with homeschooling and whatever else and parenting in general, by Friday night, I am ready to toast. Do we have something to toast with?
Okay, don't judge me. I'm having a drink as soon as this ends. I have coffee. I know that sounds insane. I know, I know, I know. And well, I don't know, maybe because, well, you have kids, so you're entitled to drink an hour earlier than me. How's that? But I am having plans after this, and then I'm gonna have a drink.
Okay, that makes sense. And I will accept that because obviously your night probably starts at like 10 p.m. Although, hold on, with lockdown, what time is your night starting?
I was gonna say, well, you know what it is? It's so funny. I'm having friends over because that's the new thing. No, tomorrow night, my friends just made dinner reservations for 8. And I'm like, we're not going out at 8 because everything closes at 10 now. We have to go out at like 6. Literally, we're changing the reservation at like 6 o'clock.
Good.
Isn't this crazy? I mean, in like New York City, it's just you just don't, it's just shocking. That's just weird.
Apocalyptic.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, how are you? My friends, I've got a couple of friends still in London, and one of them I was on Marco Polo, no, FaceTime, whatever, the other day. She said, Lurs, like, she calls me Lurs. She goes, I was out, at a party, whatever, at a dinner. It was a dinner, that was it, a dinner for the firm on Saturday night. We came out, it was like 9:50 or whatever. There were drunk people on the streets, Piccadilly Circus, whatever we're talking about, no shoes, wasted, like when we were going out to clubs and you come out at 3 a.m. or whatever and people are off their faces. This is what it was like at 10 p.m.
Because like people, you don't know where to go. So people are going out. They're just like on the streets now. It's very weird.
Oh my gosh. I will probably be doing the same thing or having people over. That to me sounds like a good idea.
That's the thing. Like by the time I was done with this tonight and I went out, I'm like, no, you just have to come over to my house. I'm sorry.
I like that. Okay.
Listen, David, as long as there's alcohol involved, it's nice to stay home and drink, right?
Listen. Okay. I mean, we just both started the sentence with listen, but listen. I am a fan of either entertaining at home or going out. Of course, when you entertain at home, you've got the comfort of thinking, oh, I don't have to get an Uber or wait for a taxi or, but you do have to clean up unless you're going to get help in. And quite frankly, I'm not having anyone else in my home.
I know.
Until I know that we're all free and clear. So it's me and my husband loading the dishwasher, washing all the extras, putting kids to bed, whatever else.
It's crazy.
Not fun. So can I talk about just the thing that I'm here to talk about?
Let's do it.
Mr. David Yontef, you are a podcaster as well, a new podcaster, right?
I've been doing it for about a year.
Okay. I think that's still new-ish.
It's new-ish. It's newish. Like my show has grown insanely fast, and we are 5 days a week now. God help me. I put a show out every day. So I'm tired.
So I heard you speaking to my friend Suzanne Dressler on her show, There's a Word for That. And I was like, oh my gosh, who is this guy who is a crazy Bravo fan? And I have been a Bravo fan for years. So I loved listening to the two of you discussing just this whole concept of fame. I've been on her show as well, and I love how she uses, just take a word and let's discuss the meaning to you and whatever else. So I love it. Yeah. And you've been ensconced in the fame world, but specifically with the Bravolebrities and other kind of, sort of characters as well. I am most interested in the Bravolebrities and also something else, which I'm going to bring up a little bit later. Okay. So tell me, how did you get into it? You were just what? Because you are a self-made millionaire. Bravolebrity, how do you end up being a friend of all of those Bravo celebs?
Well, this isn't Madonna, Beyonce, Jennifer Lopez, and Britney. So I was just like, I don't understand all these people that sit around online for hours and talk about these people. I'm like, listen, living in New York city helps. Like these people are in our backyard. We have the New York Housewives, the Jersey Housewives. We had Princesses of Long Island out in Long Island. We had Summer House in the Hamptons. We have people in our backyard. So I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I'm just going to insert myself in the story and get to meet all these people and become friends with all these people. It's not, now listen, it's not like it just happens overnight, but if you appear at places and comment and slip into the DMs, eventually it's just organic. Eventually you do meet these people. And after seeing someone a million times, you're like, all right, well, now you're kind of like not a celebrity to me because I know you, and now you're just a person, and now we're just friends, and now I'm ensconced in this world. And that's really the whole reason I started my podcast, Behind the Velvet Rope. It was because I became friends with all these Bravolebrities, and when I would go out with them and hang out, I would be like, there's stuff happening here, stuff that's not being filmed because it's off season. But and listen, if anything is really confidential, I've been in rooms where people have said, this is not for a podcast, David. And I'm like, I'm not an idiot. You're talking about divorcing someone in 9 months that the world doesn't know about. I'm not going to go talk about this. But there was enough fun stuff of who was falling off the chair, who had another drink, who might have been kissing someone secretly I'm like, these are innocent things that, all right, maybe you'll get mad at me for saying these things, but I really don't care. I have to entertain the people. And so that's kind of how I started my podcast. And then because I know all these Bravolebrities, it's turned into an interview show. And now with COVID, it's turned into a damn interview show where someone's different every day of the week because I can't keep up. I mean, people are contacting me wanting to come on my show.
How are you doing it every day of the week?
You see, you have children and I have a child too. It's called the Behind the Velvet Rope podcast. Well, it really was 2 days a week. And then like every time I add something, I stress. I'm like, okay, is there going to be enough content for 3 days a week? So I went to 3 days a week. I'm like, I'm still behind. Like I literally had people saying to me, when is my show coming out? You recorded it 3 months ago. And I'm like, I can't be behind for it. So then it went to 4 days a week. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But believe it or not, the opposite stresses me out more. Like, here's the thing. If like Countess Luann from the New York Housewives wants to come on my show, I don't think I'm in a position to say, I'm booked up until March. Let's record March 15th because that will never happen. So if someone wants to come on, I say yes right away because I feel like deals, time kills all deals. And so sometime in the next 7 days, we're going to record, and I don't know when it's going to come out, but I mean, I'd like to put it out as new of content as possible. You know what I tell people? It's just like TV. You like read about what happens on the Housewives 7 months before you see it on TV. So my stuff is behind sometimes because there's a wait list to get on my show, which is not a bad problem.
Well, I was going to say, and there's always interest in these characters regardless. Do you know what I mean? Now, it's fantastic. Obviously, when you're talking about, here in New York, or if you were living in Beverly Hills, you would be ensconced in the life of the Beverly Hills or the OC Housewives. Or if you were in London, Ladies of London ran for 2-3 seasons and it's over now, but there are other celebrities.
Honey, we've had them. We've had them all on. I'm very close with the Della King from Ladies of London. She was just on the show. We have a lot of Ladies of London coming up. A lot.
I love them.
I'm obsessed with that show. And we have a lot of OC stuff now because it's on the air. We just had like Jeana Keough on our show and Lydia McLaughlin. And so, I mean, I cover every show on Bravo. I don't care if the show hasn't been on for 20 years. I will still find you and I'm going to get you on my podcast.
It doesn't matter because we're always going to be interested. Do you know what I mean? I come from a place of not only being an actor, but when I moved to New York, I then, as a way to survive and pay my rent, I was working as a singer, and I still am now. But the company I work for, Hank Lane Music, we do a lot of celebrity parties. So, for instance, we did Bethany's wedding.
Excuse me?
Yeah, baby. And so that was an interesting, fabulous party to be at. But it was very interesting to just kind of watch from the background, I guess, and just kind of see things. But also we had to sign things to kind of say, a lot of the people in our company that do a lot of celebrity parties, we have to sign NDAs, DNAs. Yeah, to not talk about the fact that we're doing such and such's wedding or whatever, or, it's interesting. So we're kind of, our hands are tied slightly. So with you just kind of mixing with people, like if it's after a party and I'm having a secret cigarette, although I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, but you know, people like Countess and whatever else and whoever else.
Countess likes to go outside and have a little cigarette.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And you're like, okay, that's why the voice is so raspy and so, you know, so beautiful. But I love it. I feel like you have to be a certain type of person, I think, to be able to mix with people that you know are constantly being looked at or on TV, and not to go and continuously blab about what you see. So they must see something in you that gives them the comfort to be able to relax with you and do whatever and know that it's going to stay in your mind, or you just have a little bit slip and that's it, right?
A little bit. Like this past, a little bit. Like I was actually in the OC this past weekend. I did travel, believe it or not. And I stayed with like Alexis Bellino, and I had, so, you know, I feel there are some things, I mean, I can talk about, you know, we slept in the same bed. Like there's little sprinkles I can give people, but like the serious stuff about, you know, like she's dating someone and all that and the status and I'm not going to talk about that. So it's enough that will entertain people. So, right. Like you have people, there are certain casualties. Well, you know what it is? I've had more casualties, not necessarily by what I say. Believe it or not, no one really's gotten mad at me for what I've said. Like, oh, I was there and I observed this and I talked about it. No one's gotten mad at me. People get mad at me for what they say. That's what happens. Like someone will come on my podcast and say, blah, 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 Andy Cohen, blah, blah. And I don't know what you think you're doing. You're talking to like a major Bravo podcast here. And then it's in every newspaper. And then they call me and they scream. And I'm like, can I swear on here?
Yes, you can fucking swear.
I'm like, you fucking said this. And I've even had people call me and say, can you show me where I said that? And I'm like, sure.
Here's the transcript.
Listen, when something's in People Magazine and Us Weekly and the Daily Mail, let me tell you one thing, because I've learned how to work with all the media now. They're not getting a quote wrong. Sorry, honey. Like whatever you think you didn't say before it's printed in People Magazine, I can guarantee you that quote is 99.9% correct. And if it's not, it's one little word that's off that doesn't change the meaning of anything.
So has anyone tried to like sue you, or have you had like Twitter wars with any of the celebs?
No one's tried to sue me, but people have a couple of times. People will call me. This is the problem. I'm telling you, I'm not kidding you. I don't necessarily want to be friends with any more Bravolebrities. It doesn't make, now that I have a job and it's an actual job, it makes the job harder. Because people will call me and be like, listen, can you take this out? I have a really good friend, we don't need to mention who, from the New York Housewives. Every time they're on my show, they want me to send them the audio before the show. No, do you think I'm friends with Ramona? No, thank you. I'm going to pass.
Oh, that woman, I mean, I can talk badly about her. I've met her a few times. First time was when she was still with Mario. And it was like I was invisible. Everyone else around we were all chatting and everything. It was, she sat there glum as whatever. I was like, what is your problem, sweetie?
She's a horrible human being.
What is wrong with her? You're on a fantastic platform, getting so many eyes on you, making you so much money with your deals
so
and
much
whatever
money.
else. Why is she? I guess if you're horrible with the cameras, you're horrible without, right?
She's literally what you see is what you get. But so that's the thing. Like people will call and be like, "Can you edit this out? I mean, like if it's a little something." I have to also say though, when people that I'm friends with call and ask to have things edited out, I'm like, you would never call a stranger. You would never call another podcaster. But I have to tell you, they never want the right thing edited out. You're like, sure, I'll take that out because honey, see these 12 things over here? That's what you should be worried about. What you're asking me to take out, like, I don't understand how you're on the TV for 10 years and you don't understand how this works. Yeah. But after like 2 months, I understood how it works. So anytime someone wants something edited out, it is never what they should want edited out. But people will call and get mad and like say, I've had someone ask me to take the episode down. And I'm like, no fucking way. Fuck off. It's not coming down. Yeah.
Are
They're
you
like,
coercing them? You're not coercing them to say what they're saying. You're not plying them with drinks or drugs or whatever. You know what I mean?
and that's the other thing too. Every time someone has said something,
Yeah.
I will look back because, like there's some people I'm friends with that then I feel bad. I'm like, maybe I led you, like maybe I was shady with like the question. Nope. Every time it is the most open-ended question. Tell me what you think of so-and-so. You
Right.
could have said she's beautiful. She's a great mother. She's wealthy. She's like it's I've thought each time maybe I no, it's the most broadest question. You took it there. So how are you upset with me? And I really do stand my ground with that. So I've had some casualties with that.
Good. The thing is, as well, I'm guessing for most of the people that you're talking about, they would have potentially appeared on Watch What Happens Live, right? Which is
Yeah.
a live show. There's no chance to take back something they say. And normally, when it's not COVID times, everyone's sitting there drinking. So if you say something shady or shitty, you can't take it back. So you just have to train yourself to speak in a way where you can be mindful of what's coming out of your mouth, unless you're fine with everything hanging out.
Totally. And the other thing is it's bullying. Like that's where I get into the conversation of fame and this whole business and this fake world. And listen, I'm not bitter. I don't want to take the excitement away from anyone. But once you get to know these people as people, they're just people. So it's interesting to step back and see how fans just elevate them to such a level, which I understand it. I'm not bitter. I'm not looking down on it. But in a lot of cases, I'm like, if you knew this person as a human being, they're horrible. And this person also doesn't care about you. And just enjoy it. But it's bullying in the sense that like you wouldn't call Andy Cohen. You wouldn't call People Magazine. Like you wouldn't. But so I'm not backing down and taking this out or whatever it is you want, But there are a couple times, once or twice, where someone didn't ask me to take something out and I actually took something out because what they said was so like egregious that I'm like, I don't understand how people could be doing what they do and not, and I'm like, this is so whatever, it's gonna like ruin you and you are my friend. And it's like, it's dirty. Like, I mean, we're talking, one thing was about an abortion and one thing was about a suicide. And in both situations, they were true. Like I know. So I had someone on, one of the housewives, who said, so-and-so is doing something and threatening suicide, which whether this person actually meant that or not, I don't think they did. But I was like, this is too big. It's too dirty. And like the person was like, you don't have to take it out. And I'm like, I do. Like this is, and then that stuff has legal implications also.
Okay, but you know what? Is there
I'm like leaving you speechless.
Well, yeah, you are. But I'm thinking, even though they know they're on a podcast and they know that people will listen, and you've got a huge following. So is it potentially a cry for help? Is it potentially, or is it a cry for a storyline?
Well, okay. So in this situation, the person that said the suicide wasn't themselves. It was about someone else that they hated. But to your point, yeah, like to your point, I've had people on where then I get the comments where they're like, I didn't believe a word that person said. And here's my thing. So as the interviewer, I feel it's my journalistic job. It's like, here's my thing. When you're on my show, it's your hour. I'm going to ask you questions and you're going to tell your truth. I'm not going to comment. I'm not going to, I might laugh. I might give an example of, but I won't insert my opinion. So like when you're done, then the thing goes out and I get all these comments. I didn't believe a word that person said. Guess what? I didn't believe a word they said either. Like I'm in on it. I get it. I'm not going to say that to the person or in the comments because it's not really up to me. I mean, I really do believe there are two sides and the truth is somewhere in the middle, but there are so many people that I don't believe that I'm like, you haven't been in the public eye for 10 years and you want, like, what's going to happen. When this comes out, you've seen my other headlines. This will be in the paper and that's what you want. Now, I don't really know what you get from that because you are in the paper for 48 hours. You have a moment for like, this is how it works. I'm telling you, I'm like an expert on press. You have 48 hours. So I don't know what that gets you. It doesn't get you back on TV. It doesn't get you a deal. It doesn't get you any money in your pocket. It just gets your name in the press for it. When I say 48 hours, maybe 4 days, maybe, but it's within like 4 days, it's over. We're on to something else. So I do think a lot of people come on my show to use it for headlines, which they get, and I'm okay with it. It helps my show. But a lot of times, I mean, and then there are other times where someone has a real story, and I'm like, I believe I can't describe it. Like, you just know when someone's like telling you the truth and when someone's just has an agenda. But it's really not my place. It's not my place to say to someone, this is all bullshit.
Has anyone that you've had on so far sort of revealed something to you that you felt gobsmacked and literally didn't quite know how to handle it? Like, you should be talking to a therapist and not to me, David. I'm just sitting here for the entertainment. What the heck? Has anyone done that to you?
I feel like they've said shocking things, but nothing. I guess recently I had a situation. I mean, it is like a lot of the stuff I know. Like, I had Lisa Vanderpump's house guest on, Cedric from.
How is he? What's he doing now?
Well, he said all these things about Lisa and Lance Bass, who he dated. So like, but I knew that was coming. Like, I heard chatter about it. So you know what I'm saying? So in that sense, it got a lot of headlines. It was shocking, but I kind of expected it all. Do you know what I mean? So I guess recently, I won't say who because it's not coming out for a while, but I had some below deck. I had an ex below deck person on. Literally, this just happened 2 days ago. It'll be out within 2 months. And I just thought, like, all right, this will be a nice chat for 45 minutes. He was on the show. We'll talk about the yachting industry. Like, it's not going to be my most exciting show, and that's okay. They don't all. He went in. He was like talking about Kate Chastain and Captain Lee, and just like what happens off camera. I'm telling you, like, and I've heard it all. My mouth was like on the floor. I'm like, what?
Now hold on. Kate Chastain is my husband's favorite. Like, he won't watch the episodes if Kate's not in it. So I watch all of the episodes because I'm just interested in the work that they all do and how they get along and the crazy stuff that goes on and everything. But okay, when you say Kate Chastain and Captain Lee, are we talking?
No, nothing about that. No, nothing about them fooling around, but just how they treated him when he was on the show, and just. Drink. There's allegations of, alcohol, drugs, like so it was just a lot of stuff that I'm like, wow, I thought this interview was going to be 40 minutes. It was like an hour. I'm like, this is okay. Now I'm paying attention. And the more he talked, the more like I'm like, okay, this outline, I don't even need anymore. Because now I got like 45 questions for you. And he was like, I don't have anywhere to be. Like, let's just. So I'm like, this is amazing. So
okay, but hold on. Is he burning his bridges? Because I know, even though was he fired?
No, you know what it is. I feel. I mean, in a way, I feel like a lot of these people burn their bridges, but then, like, look at Vicky and Tamara. Like, they've said horrible things about Andy Cohen and not being there, and Andy sends flowers to Vicky to say we wouldn't have an OC. I don't know. I feel like, you know what it is? I feel being in this industry and dealing with all these people, I swear, I feel like you just get over it. It's a sick industry. It's like, I mean, some people don't get over it, but I feel like there's so much drama and backstabbing that you're just, whatever your problem is on Monday, by Wednesday, you hate someone else and you're over it.
It has to be that way. And I feel like Andy is probably either predisposed or whether he's just made that way because he's always had a fascination for the sort of the dramatics and the beautiful ladies and the powerful ladies and all of that kind of stuff. So I feel like he just kind of knows, even before becoming a dad, like almost all of these women, all of these housewives were kind of like his kids in a way, just like, yeah, it's all right. You're saying horrible things to daddy now. You're mad at me. Fine. Tomorrow you won't be mad at me and it's okay. And quite frankly, it should be like a water off a duck's back for him, because he is sitting on top of all of this. This is all his empire, even though, okay, clarify for me. Because the OC was the first franchise that I watched. I think that was the first franchise to ever be aired. And in fact, I think they had some reruns on recently. But apparently, Jeana is saying that it was Jeana Keough, right? She is saying, or she was saying at some point, that the show was meant to be centered around her, or it was her idea.
Well, if you just read that, that's from my podcast.
I know. I listened to your podcast.
Okay.
I got introduced to you through my friend Suzanne, like end of last week, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's fascinating. I'm listening to all of your podcasts. Guys, audience members, you have to listen. If you're remotely interested in anything celebrity, and especially Bravo, or even beyond, you have to be. Perez Hilton, I know he's part of your life as well. Okay. You have to listen
We had Perez Hilton on. He was a great interview.
Behind the Velvet Rope, which okay, can I offer you an idea here?
Yes. And then just to say, yes, like before you do, like this is how I describe it. We're 90% Bravo and like 10%. Like we had Perez and Melissa Rivers. I'm now getting into all the girls from Drag Race. If you like Drag Race, all the queens are coming. You know what it is? It was like 99% Bravo. And that's great. And then at one point I panicked and I'm like, just from a business point of view, this is not a good business model. It's just not, for a lot of reasons. And so, listen, I'm not going to go interview some sports player in the NFL. It's like one step outside the box. Like today I had a soap actor on from General Hospital, but he also worked Sean Kanan. He played AJ Quartermain forever, but he was also on Bold and the Beautiful with Rinna, and he knows Denise. So like it still ties back to Housewives. But what were you going to say? You're going to ask me a suggestion or give me a suggestion?
I'm from As the World Turns, as is Ryan Serhant. Ryan Serhant from for a Listing. You should include those boys as well, because I think there'll be some interesting things. Yes, they're all about real estate, but they also have other things going on. But Ryan,
I've had David, James, and Tracy Tudor.
Oh yes,
on
the Londoner and the beautiful girl, beautiful woman.
David and James came on separately, but they were both phenomenal. I'm trying to think. I have somebody from $1 Million Listing New York coming up. Okay. I'm trying to think who else. Yeah, but I mean, no, listen, I cover it all. I love Selling Sunset, that show. I don't know if you watch that. That's like
Well, no, my friend just told me to watch that.
It's phenomenal.
I haven't gotten into it yet. So okay, so talk to me about the do you have an understanding or a relationship with Andy Cohen? Is there any kind of agreement?
No. Like, listen, all I'm going to say is, how can I say this? Bravo is, I would say, not the easiest network to work with.
Okay.
So, I mean, I do my own thing, I mean, listen, here's really the bottom line. People who are still on the show are great guests, but people who are not on the show are even better guests.
Of course, because they spill the beans about everything.
They say everything.
Right.
And there's really a market for it. Like when I have, I had Jeana Keough on this past week. I was like, this should be an okay show. People went crazy. So it's like sometimes when I think like Jeana, she hasn't been on the show forever. People will be happy to hear from her. It won't, it'll be like, I just in my own mind have like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday show. I'm like, there is a method to my madness about the A-list shows, the A-, the B, but then like I'll put out like a Jeana Keough and think it's like an okay show. People go crazy. Yeah. So I think there's this need for these people that we haven't heard from in a while.
Can I make a request?
Sure. People do all the time. I get 8,000 DMs a day and people are like, why don't you get Andy Cohen and Bethany? I'm like, okay, slow down. That's not going to happen, but go on.
Okay, well, first and foremost, I appreciate the fact you didn't even respond to a DM. I think I just posted about I put it on my story because I was so fascinated by it was your guest. Oh, you were talking about fame, blah, blah, blah. And then I ended up watching the documentary because you were talking about the Paris Hilton documentary. Fabulous.
It was great,
So,
right?
it was fantastic. Fantastic. And I've never, Paris Hilton doesn't affect me either way. I know Wendy Williams has always loved her and just kind of thought she was very smart. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this girl, but I've never really looked into it. After listening to that, to either I think it was that episode, I was like, okay, let me look into this. Found it on YouTube. Fascinating.
And that's the thing. I sat home, watched it, and I said, okay, let's be reasonable here. Paris Hilton is not coming on my podcast. So who is in the, Nikki Hilton's not. So I'm like, I'm just going to reach out to the director. I mean, that's a pretty good person. And like within 2 seconds, she got back to me and she's like, I would love to come on.
I love that. The explanation of things. Like, for instance, the first scene, and Paris is on the floor in her black sweats, whatever. I was like, oh, I remember her saying, just kind of seeing Paris in this position and whatever, and just kind of talking about how she's not the same person she was. Anyway, let me go back to my suggestion.
Yes.
I would, and I think many people that are a fan of your podcast and everything that you're doing would love it if you would also do a visual podcast.
Yes. Well, okay. So we are on YouTube, but yes, I mean, everything is recorded. I have to say that. So I put little clips on YouTube. In the beginning, I put full videos on YouTube too. I just am not, I don't know. I go back and forth because then to me, it's like, does that take away from people listening on Apple? That's my only thing.
Okay, so this is where I'm at now, and I'm a very new podcaster, and I don't have even 1% of the following that you have, but I come from the place of acting and singing, and I'm always in front of a live audience. The podcasting thing came during quarantine. It was like, okay, let me explore this. I had Facebook live show and whatever else. It made sense to me to also record it for YouTube, just in case people do have downtime. There's a lot of content that's going on YouTube now.
Yeah,
I do understand when it comes to the downloads and trying to get the numbers and whatever else. But for someone like you, who already has a big following and has a lot of friends in whether they're high or medium places, you still have a good, you have a good standing. I think it would be fun, also because you're good looking. So that's why I'm asking you about you and Andy Cohen, because I know Andy Cohen has good taste. With his, I've introduced him to a couple of people. So
I would marry Andy Cohen for a lot of reasons.
Listen, first of all, I think he's gorgeous. I think he's smart. I think he's funny. I think he loves to party. I love the fact that he is now a father.
He lives close by. I'm in Chelsea and he's in the West Village. So there you go.
I partied at one of his first apartments was it Chelsea? It was West Village. So that was about...
It's probably the same apartment he's in now. I mean, he bought the upstairs one, but he was probably one of the two.
Okay, probably. Yeah, my friend Henry Shedd took me there when I first arrived in this country. He's singing in the band. It was like, hey, we're going to go to a party at my friend's house. I was like, oh, okay. We went, full of beautiful people, bartenders, beautiful bar, things going on in the bedroom, things going on in people's faces. And I was like, oh, yeah.
You're like, welcome to New York.
Hello, I loved it. Thank you, Taylor Swift. Anyway,
seriously.
I would say, I'm going to say now, I would watch, I would also listen, because I'm a busy parent, and in these quarantine times, remote learning, whatever else, I would happily listen to it as I'm doing other things like I did. But if it was a guest that I really would love to actually watch, the same way we watch them on Watch What Happens Live or whatever, I would say, okay, I'm going to save this episode so when I'm sitting there with a glass of something, so I can actually watch and see all the nuances in people's faces and see you and everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's something that I have thought about. Like, I have to think of a way to do it. Like maybe a year later, I don't know, or 6 months. But at first I had full episodes in there and I'm like, wait a second, I think I'm screwing myself with downloads,
right.
Which you are. I don't see how you're not. I don't
don't have a huge following like you, and I seriously have way more downloads from the podcast than I have people watching. But I would rather do the interviews done up. First of all, it's my one opportunity in the week to get glammed up.
I record all of mine unless I would say like not even 1% of it, but like 0.5% of the guests won't come on video, but it's so small. A lot of the drag queens won't, which I could understand that because they don't want to get inherited. Some come on as boys, some aren't in drag, but then others just are like, I'm a mess and the world is never. And I mean, they just look completely different and they're like, I just don't want to be seen. I'm like, I get it. But most people will come on the video. So I actually have videos with all these famous people.
I think that whether it's a compilation episode or something, also because I'm going to reiterate, and I know you're gay, but reiterate that we like looking at pretty things. So
that's true.
The fact that you look the way you do, and then your guests are whoever they are, like Jonathan Anton. I mean, I haven't seen him for years, and I'm looking at the little, the little thumbnail or whatever that you have on your Instagram. I'm like, oh my gosh, he still looks really great,
Yeah.
But it's something I would certainly buy into for sure.
Interesting. Okay. This is interesting.
So
you're giving me ideas. You're giving me ideas.
Please. And then I want to be on it.
Yes, you have to come on it.
Obviously, I know I'm not a celebrity.
No, but you know what? I have a Patreon account too that I put bonus shows on.
Oh, really?
So we'll work something out with that. I have to think I am just trying to catch up. That's my, like, I know this sounds like egotistical, but it's not. But I literally, like, I will never say no to a guest, but I literally stress out when I get an email saying like, oh, and I want to come on. I'm like, oh my God, now I have like 9 more hours of work and it's 9:05 in the morning. And I just, from opening my email between 9 and 9:05, I now have 9 new people that want to come on. And it's not like I just let anyone come on, but I'm like, they're all big names. And so now you've just given me 9 more fucking hours of work. So everybody leave me alone. I am not complaining because that's amazing. It's just
but listen, I've got my usual guests are parents or whatever else. So I had a guest who openly discussed, not unwillingly or wittingly, with her guests about how hard it is and how fucking annoying it is to be a parent because you fucking lose yourself, this, that, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it was not what her episode was intended to be. So yes, with every blessing, there's going to be bits that you're going to be annoyed at. But
totally.
Can I say to you that you already inspired me just from listening to how you think about the fact that, I'm never going to turn down a guest. So when you and I were chatting via DM and it was like, oh, sure, I'll do it. I was like, okay, even though I know I'm jam-packed on this day, I don't care. I know what I cannot do, which is I need to sit there and stare at my son and make sure he's focusing and make sure he's paying attention and answering the teacher and blah, blah, blah. But once I clock off from that, just give me enough time to paint my face, put a dress on, I will be in front of the camera. So I will interview and talk to people until midnight, until I'm falling asleep. It's because of you that I
think that's a good, because like, then if you really are, we're not traveling now, but if it's Christmas, if your son has an emergency and you just listen, I always say this to people because people ask me for advice all the time on podcasting. And so I always say like I didn't start my show until, I had my show idea, but I didn't announce it to the world until I had like 6 episodes, which at that point was 3 weeks. Like, I would never want to be one of those people that's just chasing the story of like, I put out 1 episode a week and where's my episode? That would stress me out. Now, like I said, I've built myself a little bit, I'm too backed up, but I don't like saying no to guests. I feel if someone wants to come on your show, ideally you should lock that in within the next 7 days. But now I'm like, I've relaxed it a little bit. It's 14 days just because I'm so far ahead. But like, I think short of that, like, but I mean, you want to come on my show, we need a date in the next 7 to 10 days.
Yeah, I like that.
Because otherwise it's not going to happen. It's not. Yeah. People have the best intentions and then it just
life happens.
And you forget you said yes. And then you go back to that person and you're like, no, I really wanted you.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, well, now I'm not free for like 3 months. And you're like, what?
And also, if you really wanted me, why didn't you jump right away? It's like a lover. It's like, if you wanted to be with me, why didn't you tell me so right away? Let's do it.
Okay,
So
I'm not I think,
yeah.
So I think if you do that and you put out content that's a little bit older, I mean, yours is different because it's not really tied to things going on in the world, but I feel like my listeners just have gotten used to the fact that things are a little old. But again, you know what's going on with the Kardashians, the Housewives of New York 6 months before it happens, and yet you still watch it. So to me, it's like, just listen.
Because we're watching it unfold on camera, but then if they're a guest of yours, then we're actually hearing it from the horse's mouth. Which okay, very quickly before we have to go, what is going on with Erika Jayne and her marriage?
I mean, I don't know. I've said this before that, I mean, I still stand by the fact, I mean, I get it. I still stand by the fact that, you know, apparently he has all these legal issues now that people are coming after him for money or whatever. And I just think he's such a smart lawyer that part of this, I just think part of this is legal. It's just like, I know it's sad, right?
I mean, I knew it was, you know, it's like an Anna Nicole Smith situation, but not quite. You know, Erika's far smarter, and they really did have a connection. So I was
it's sad.
I was thinking either they have an arrangement where she can go out, because she is one I will never kick out of bed. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Like, so she must meet people all the time. And does she just say no, or do they have an arrangement? So the fact they're getting divorced, and her son, who basically grew up with this man, who seems to have been so supportive of her, it does make me sad. It's not a
It's a little sad. I mean, a lot of people that listen to my show think that I come for Erika and Lisa Vanderpump all the time. And I say this all the time. My guests come for Erika and my guests come for Lisa Vanderpump. I don't. I have nothing. I have no horse in the race. So I have nothing against any of them. I think it's kind of sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I've met Erika a lot of times. I think she's like great at what she does. She's brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, I know you're hiding something there.
Oh! No. I really don't. I just am so interested to see how this all plays out, because I was really rooting for them.
Yes. I just thought it was going to be the arrangement. It was their arrangement. It's their marriage. It's their setup, and they're happy with it. They're comfortable with it. It doesn't matter who else, you know, sort of is around.
But you know what? For everyone who says, because a lot of people say Erika doesn't bring anything to the camera, you know, she doesn't share with us. Let me tell you something. This season will be all about a divorce, and next season will be all about dating. So Erika just became like, could you imagine in 2 years when Erika's on the show and she's going on dates?
She just on Broadway, and
she just like signed herself up for that show for another 2 to 3 years.
Honey, and if she's going to go out on dates, I hope this includes men and women. Not that I'm allowed to put myself.
That would be. I didn't even think of that, but that would be amazing.
Hello, there are a line of women who are
line.
Hello. All right, I'm going to let you go. I don't want to keep you for so long. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate you taking the time out. And I know your time is incredibly chock-a-block. So I really appreciate it. No, you have a book coming out. Hold on. You have a book.
I have a book coming out. I'll tell everyone they can find me, and I'll come back on to, well, here's the thing about the book. COVID is like, I don't know what the hell's going on. I wrote a book. To your question in the beginning, I wasn't even going to mention the book about how I became friends with all these people. That's what my book is about. It's literally how to go from fan to friend with all of these housewives. It's a process. It's really a how-to book. It's funny. There's stories. There's little secrets in there. But if you read it, it really is how to, not housewives, any reality star or like accessible public. If you read this book, you will too become friends with all these people. Thanks to COVID, at this point, this book could be out like God knows when. So,
well, no, it will come out when it's safe again to then be, you know, rubbing shoulders with the right people.
And that's the thing. Like, I don't even want it to come out now. Like, it's I want, you know, so I'm like, it's fine. But everyone, when it comes out, I'll tell everyone. But everyone could follow me on Instagram in the meantime at Behind Velvet Rope. There's no it's just Behind Velvet Rope, or they can listen to me on Apple Podcasts at Behind the Velvet Rope. And like you said, if you want to hear interviews 5 days a week with Blast from the Past, Bravolebrities, but other reality shows too. Like, again, we had all of the Selling Sunset people on, and Perez Hilton, Melissa Rivers, and now we're getting into all these drag queens from RuPaul's Drag Race that want to come on. So like we have, but it's mostly Bravo. It'll always be mostly Bravo. So Bravo's what people want to hear about.
My heart did belong to the E network. Now it's fully Bravo. I mean, I was E and Bravo. Now it's fully Bravo. I think maybe Larry Namer needs to come back and kind of take over. Larry Namer was one of my guests as well when I first started this podcast. I think he needs to come back and take over the whole programming, because it's just...
He had some great Fashion Police, Rich Kids.
Oh, Rich Kids! Oh my gosh!
He was like, I mean, so I just had on Kelly Henderson like 2 weeks ago. She is from Very Cavalieri. She's Kristen's ex-best friend, the one that got death threats because people thought she cheated with Jay. And so she came on, she was a great guest. So that was a great show. But yeah, I don't know what's going on. And they're a great network to deal with. Unlike,
I know,
they're wonderful.
They've got good characters on it. Justin Silver, what's her name? Beautiful blonde girl from Rich Kids.
Morgan, amazing.
Morgan, and the other lady, but like everything else, I'm like, what's happening?
They need a hit. They need a hit because it's not.
Maybe it will be behind the velvet rope.
You know what? We are available to be hired by the E network if they would like to have a podcasting show, or I'm available for any other type of show as well.
Maybe, can I put you in touch with Larry Namer?
Seriously. Yeah. Cause I'm actually working on a show idea. Seriously. Like hand to God.
Okay. I'm gonna
DM.
I'll connect the two of you. Once we've logged off, I've literally got another interview starting in 4 minutes.
Oh my God. All right. Don't be late.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate it. Enjoy your evening tonight, and I'm going to text you either later tonight or tomorrow, okay?
Please do. I'll get back to you. And everyone, follow Behind the Velvet Rope on Apple and Behind Velvet Rope. I love you. Text me.
Mwah! Love you. Thank you. Stay safe.
You too. Stay safe. All right. Bye.
Bye, love.
I wanna be your brother. That's right. I wanna be your lover and your sister too.
This podcast, please share it with a friend or several friends. Post a screenshot of this episode on your Instagram stories and tag me at Loretta Nakwacha. You can also watch this episode with a cold beverage on my YouTube channel. The link is posted below. Lastly, if you have the time, please leave a positive review on Apple Podcasts so that we can continue sharing stories, singing songs, and living our lives really out loud.